It's general advice and my opinions only. CFDs are high risk, past performance isn't reliable. I may be long or short CFDs and stocks mentioned. Content may contain language that offends some viewers. LEVRD operates as corporate authorised representative 001318377 under AFSL 548573. You can find our financial services guide via the LEVRD website link in the show notes.
Righto, bag holders and stop loss owners. Okay. I'm alive. I'm a bit more alive today. The sewerage pipe's coming on. Big Brad Seward. So I'm going to rip through my bit, then he's going to come on. We're going to talk about everything that's going on. Let's, pardon me. Let's bloody rip in. Commodities overnight. What have we got? Alumina up 4%. What's coal doing? Coca coal down 0.4, 236. Aussie dollars at 69.5, so that's dropped a bit. Copper $5.56 a pound. Gold 45.16. So hovering around there. One news headline away from things going up or down a fuckload. Like who knows? Nickel $7.78 a pound. Recovered a little bit, 2.4%. Brent crude, so that's, I've got 102 here. It's sort of sitting around that 9,900 mark at the moment. Spodumene 6% had a good rebound last night, up 4.6%, 22.13. Thermal coal down 1.6%, $137 a tonne. And so to the US 10-year Treasury yield down 0.9%, so 4.3. So rolling off a tiny bit. So the majors overnight. Bit of green on screen. Ivanhoe up 5%. Agnico Eagle up 4.6%. Newmont up 2.7%. Barrick up 2.6%. But that was after a very strong day on the ASX. So we'll see how we open today. Breakthrough. The deal's closed. This is a holding. This is a conflict. I love a good fucking conflict. The bloody deal has been closed. So they own all the bloody North Queensland copper stuff off Aeris now. They picked it up for $5 million. They're giving them the vendors a 1.8% net smelter royalty. So the deal is done. We'll see how it bloody opens. Breakthrough could be the breakthrough for Matty. We'll fucking wait and see. But this is what I was waiting for. It sounds like they've bloody done a good job liaising with the relevant stakeholders to get this thing friggin' transferred. So they've got it now. That's a good bloody catalyst. What do we got? Vault, not a holding. Their stage 1 plan upgrade commissioning has commenced. So that's the stage 1's expanding King of the Hills to 6 million tonne per annum. First ore's expected to feed the new crusher on 31st of March. So the stage 2 upgrade is progressing on time. That's scheduled for Q2 FY27, so end of this year. And that's going to increase the plant capacity to 7.5 to 8 million tonne per annum. Interesting comments down the bottom. They're obviously addressing as a risk to the business. They've got stockpiles of 15 million tonne at King of the Hill at 180,000 for 180,000 ounces. I think that equates to about 0.37 grams per tonne. I think I calculated something like that, 0.3 something. So, and it's highlighting flexibility to maintain baseload mill feed under a range of operating scenarios which may be required to be implemented to mitigate the risk of supply disruptions of key operational inputs due to the current tensions in the Middle East. And I would assume key operational inputs is fucking trucks with diesel in it, because they got to move a shitload of dirt, and if they can't get enough diesel, they won't be moving the dirt to feed that new 6 million tonne plant. So interesting. We still don't know what's going on. As I said, I'll talk to the sewage pipe about it, but bloody this Strait of Hormuz, even if it reopens, it's probably going to take weeks to stabilise and get the oil back to the rest of the world. So who knows? Caprice Resources. This was one I was going to have a tickle at, but I didn't. And I can't have a tickle at it because I'm on a trading ban. For good reasons. Pretty good hits here. I don't mind Caprice, and it's bloody flying under the radar. 11 metres at 7.1 grams per tonne from about, where's that? That is about 200 metres below the surface. Another hit of 11 metres at, that one's about 300 below the surface. Then 11 metres at 17.3 That's about 200 metres below the surface. That's an old hit. So that's on the Vadrian's deposit. So, yeah, in the Murchison, they've had an equity raise overhang. They've raised the equity and she's, got hammered. So, interesting. It's right in the bloody Ramelius Westgold area. So, surprised nothing's happened with it yet. But, we'll see. I think they're drilling away. They're going to, it looks like they're drilling heaps to get a fucking big resource upgrade done in one go instead of drip feeding it out. Interesting one. Anyway, I can't touch it because I'm on a fucking trading ban and I didn't buy it when it was bloody down because I was fucking around with other shit. So what do we got? Here's the holdings. Breakthrough had a kick yesterday, back up to 17 cents. We'll see how she opens today. So that's bloody kicked me back up a bit. Everything else had a good kick. Gold kicked. ASX 200 hit. Bloody that ASX 200 call option closes today. So we'll see what that does. 83.50. So I think ASX 200 is about 85 odd. So we'll see where she ends up. I've finally made some money back. I've finally gone up a little bit. Oh, tell you what, far out, but Jesus Christ, it could go the other way. Fucking 28% yesterday, back up to 126. 126, but Jesus Christ, it could change fucking quickly. Who friggin' knows? But, oh, thank God. I can't believe I was into 5 digits, 98. So we're back up a little bit and there's not much more to say. Right, let's cross to big Bradley Seward, the big fella from GBA. Here we go. Righto, Big Bradley. Welcome, mate. What is going on? I haven't given an Iran update yet because everyone's sick of hearing my opinion, but it could go either way. We're one headline away from carnage down or promising stuff up.
Oh, mate, absolutely. It kind of feels to me a bit like there's there's two real sort of schools of thought here. I mean, I sort of had a look at the news that came out overnight when I woke up this morning and thought, shit, I'm surprised the market's not sort of pointing down by, a couple of percent on the back of, we're going to absolutely destroy Iran. And obviously, it's sort of come out and it's not gone the opposite direction, but it's definitely not falling. I'm just a little bit sort of confused, to be frank, as to what's going on here. I'm not sure if we sort of got the positives over the overnight yesterday, and we're not seeing it today. But mate, it just feels like the market's poised to go down a bit more. And I hate to say that. I'm sort of the perma bull in the market, but does feel like we're due a little leg down here on some of that sort of geopolitical news at the moment.
Yeah. It's the only thing I'm thinking about is his deadline, his 5-day thing is Saturday, and it seems that Trump has a bit of a trend of when he puts these deadlines in, he doesn't act on them, and he either de-escalates or something's fixed at the end of these deadlines, which is what we saw the start of this week and at the end of his 48-hour thing. Similar stuff happened with the tariff stuff. Hence, it's a coin flip. It's an absolute coin flip. And as I said yesterday, Iran, they mightn't win wars, but they never really lose negotiations. Stubborn fucking bastards by the looks. That's why I just don't know. And I'm surprised gold's hovering around 4,500. But, long term, I'm obviously concerned about when inflation really kicks in post this. I don't think it's going to be a quick fix. No. What are you thinking on that front?
Well, mate, I don't disagree. And I think, it's funny, I guess, whenever you talk about gold, you can kind of push it either way in terms of inflation. Is it a good inflation hedge? I think, the reality is probably driven by other things more. Obviously central bank buying sort of, really driven it up over the last couple of years. But I do think gold and real assets are a really good, inflation hedge at the moment is my sort of view, Matt. So, I'd be buying some gold mining stocks, and particular ones that are sort of really high grade underground deposits as well. I think I was reading a really interesting piece, that was written by the guys at Goldman Sachs earlier today, just around the impacts of diesel on on these sort of gold miners. And obviously, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure out the guys who use more diesel are going to be impacted by the price of diesel going up 50%. But I mean, you're a miner, Matt, and you know exactly how much energy these operations actually use as well. And it's most of the input is obviously the salaries of the employees as well as energy from generally diesel. So it could be. I know we've talked about this before, but it could be sort of a really sort of negative impact for a lot of these guys in terms of cost base, especially the bigger miners. The guys that are using. That are moving lots and lots and lots of tons. I mean, think, King of the Hills at Volt's a really good example.
Well, I mentioned that they just come out today, and that bottom of the announcement said, like we've got 15 million tonne at 0.3 odd gram that we might have to utilise for the processing plant because Middle East tensions with key inputs, which I assume is, as you say, diesel to move a lot of the dirt to feed a new 6 million tonne plant. So they're flagging it already.
Well, it's exactly right. Yeah. It's exactly right, and I think there might be a bit more of that moving forward as well. I suspect they're probably going to take diesel off these sort of gold miners before they take it off. The iron ore guys up north, and that's the other thing to think about as well. We've got it feels like we've got a little bit of sort of impacts. They've kind of sidestepped it a bit up north for the iron ore miners at the moment of Cyclone Narelle. And, there could be, if it sort of hits landfall, one of the areas they're talking about it hitting landfall is sort of Gascoyne or Geraldton, and then coming in from there, there could be some impacts for the miners up in that part of the world. Obviously Ramilius, Westgold have got some big operations around sort of Meekatharra, which is just in from Geraldton as well. So there's quite a bit going on at the moment. I don't envy you, Matt, levering yourself up and
neither do
and
I.
Taking a swing at all of these things.
Well, hence why I'm on a trading ban, Seward. Yes. Well, interesting you mentioned like diesel for power, like the thing that people probably don't know, like for underground, and especially when they've got diesel that is powering the mains power, like diesel gensets for the site power, your biggest diesel energy consumer for underground is ventilation. So that's what separates underground from open pit. So you've got all the diesel to feed the ventilation, you've got all the diesel to feed the trucks and the boggers, and look, the jumbos run on electricity, but they need diesel to tram between headings. So your underground operations that are solely relying on diesel, like your Orobandas, your Pantoros, your Black Cats and stuff like that. That's why I want to know your view, because my view at the moment is that's why I'm just sticking clear of producers on the longs, because it's so uncertain about, even before this happened, who's going to meet guidance with skill shortage and everything like that. We've already seen Pantoro, Northern Star downgrade, Orabanda saying they're going to hit the lower end, and then you chuck all this shit in as well. Just like who the frick's going to meet it? Like, are you seeing more opportunity in developers, explorers that are decoupled from the diesel risk a bit more than producers?
Yeah, I think so, mate. I'm kind of, I guess personally, where I'm invested at the moment, given I don't have the liquidity constraints a lot of my clients do. I'm definitely more focused on kind of the explorers. Obviously, there's a bit more leverage there, and I think a lot of these guys that I own, explorers or developers, have got sort of three to 5 times to go from where they are at the moment. But the problem you got with those things, and I'm sure you're seeing it as well, Matt, is that the cost of capital going up is a really big impact for them. So, if markets dislocate, a lot of these guys have come off, 40, 50%. I just took a little swing again, PA, in a thing called Gold Arc a couple of days ago on this really big pullback. And, it's been an amazing story. And he's one of these guys that it was just on the cusp of production, and I think he probably pushes that out a little bit more. Paul Stevens, the managing director there, but that thing's fallen from nearly hit 8 cents, and now I think I picked a little bit up in the early 4s, and I'm sure now that I've said I bought a little bit, it'll push through the price that I purchased it at as well. But stuff like that where they're effectively have been absolutely smoked on the back of cost of capital going up. To me, feels like an easy kind of win as tensions de-escalate. And I think I'm the same as you and the same as the rest of you kind of audience as well, Matt. Is I still think we're in a structural bull market for both. I still think we're in a structural bull market for both sort of gold as well as commodities in general. There's been such an underinvestment in exploration for nearly a decade post kind of the last mining boom that we had after the GFC. There's just been no exploration spend at all. So we're really sort of seeing the fruits of both increased demand from electrification as well as I guess the world reindustrializing, or the West reindustrializing at least. And also there's the constraint in supply, just given we just haven't spent a lot of money on exploration for a long time. And obviously, our dear friends at Canaccord and Euroz Hartleys and Argonaut are raising a lot of money for explorers at the moment, and we're doing our fair share of it as well. So a bit of that'll be helped over the next little while, but it still takes 10 years to get a mine up and running. I remember, how long did it take to get Bellevue from, that's probably the fastest I've ever seen from discovery hole to production. And that was still 5-6 years.
Yeah.
So that's the absolute, bare minimum from kind of a discovery of a, almost tier 1 asset, or an incredibly high grade deposit that is already going to be a mine. It takes a while. So I'd be really surprised if over the next kind of, you look forward 6 months and we're not, well and truly, above where we are at the moment, but we could easily kind of take another 10-20% leg down from here.
Yeah. And that's where I'm sort of fucking hope it doesn't happen, but it easily could. Like, as I said, it's not just the inflation rising. It just means if the inflation rises on the back of this, got no chance of rate cuts. We've got rate hikes, if anything. Like, I suppose the only positive at the moment is the 10-year yield rolling off a little bit last night, and Aussie US dollar back below 70. So like, that's a bit of positivity for gold. Whether that's going to offset lack of rate cuts, I just don't know. Like 4,500 could be the fucking new number. It could go to 4,000. It is, to have a commodity price like gold just move fucking 10% easily is just phenomenal. But it's 10% at the moment of a high number, which for these miners, like to go from $7,000 to $6,000 realised sale price, like that is just a huge swing, considering their costs, all-in costs are probably fucking 4,500. Some of them 3,000 all-in sustain, and times that by half, 1.5 for capital injected. Like it's huge. They'll be down to negative free cash flow quite easily if we go back to sub 6,000. I think some of them.
It definitely is. There's definitely a case for that. There's some of the higher cost mines out there. That they could do. They could be well and truly generating negative free cash. I mean, there's a good chart. An old colleague of mine, Michael Scantlebury, puts out sort of once a quarter after all the gold quarterlies, just the corporate all-in costs.
Oh yeah, the Johnny Mac. He got that from Johnny Mac, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He stole that from the great Johnny Mac. But yeah, I always love that chart, and it's a great one that sort of goes around most of the market, every sort of quarter, and it just shows you that like these all-in sustaining cost numbers that they talk about are usually just crap, and they put so much of the expenses either through the overheads or a lot of sustaining capital really, goes into growth capital, and it's not really growth capital as well.
Right. So, underground decline. That's your best example. Like they just put it all in capital, but you need it to access the new level. Like it's just
that's exactly right, mate. It's exactly right. And then all of the sort of I guess all the administrative costs that they put through. I guess the sort of I guess front office or the head office out in Perth that really shouldn't be there as well. I mean, and I think there's the other point that we've sort of been talking about is like now everything's been smashed. What are we going to see corporate wise? Is there going to be some of these bigger guys coming in and deciding, you know what, we've got a good balance sheet, we've made a lot of money. What are we going to buy? What looks cheap? I think some of those names that we sort of talked about, like the Orobandas and the Pantoros, are probably not there just yet. I mean, Pantoro looks relatively cheap, to be frank, given it could get to 300,000 to 400,000 ounces per annum out of sort of Norseman. But something like an Orobanda, maybe they decide, hey, do we buy Ballard, which is up the road? Do we take a swing at Oren as well? Potentially double the size of our production in the next kind of 12 months on M&A. Or am I an Agnico? And Agnico has sort of been outed as wanting to buy Northern Star. Do we see some really big M&A in the top end of the market as well?
$18.60 today, Northern Star. So pretty much down 40%
mate. And Jesus Christ, that's gone absolutely pear-shaped, hasn't it? I mean, you look at that, and then you look at Agnico. I mean, they've got obviously Northern Star. You'd be, if you're big Stewie Owen at Macquarie. I'm from memory, I think he's the defence mandate for Northern Star, but he does all the work there for them and bought De Grey. You're sitting there a little bit worried. I mean, if they were going to come in with a $25 bid, it'd be tough to say no to that. There's three bloody good mines there. De Grey, Hemi's assets, that could easily be a million ounce per annum gold mine in sort of 5 or 10 years' time. Like that's a globally significant mine. And then obviously you got the super pit as well. And then Pogo just, absolutely shits cash right now.
And then spin everything else out effectively.
Well, exactly. And then suddenly, you could create another Northern Star. You got to remember 15, 20 years ago, not even 15 years ago, that business was started. I remember I had a little chuckle. We were looking through one of the old presentation decks, and they had a uranium asset there in Northern Star.
Yeah, up here. Was that up in the Kimberley? That was what was in it before they vended it in. Yeah. So do you reckon, like you look at Northern Star as an example, Orobanda, they could go by Mulwary or they could go by Gorilla, friggin' Bright Star's at I'm just looking at the screen. Bright Star's still at 34 cents, and they raised at 50. They had 100 mil EV the other week. Do you think, this market's so uncertain, but do you think we're going to see anyone go hostile on a takeover while things are cheap? Because no one's going to want to come negotiate through the front door with a company that's been hammered. They're nearly going to have to go hostile to get anything going, wouldn't they?
You'd have to think so. I mean, you just don't see those big hostile takeovers anymore, or raiding in the registers that you kind of used to. I was involved in a couple at my time at Macquarie, and they're really exciting, but it usually tends to be private equity funds that want to have a swing, or offshore companies coming into Australia trying to have a swing as well. So maybe we see Agnico coming in and taking a few percent of Northern Star, but a lot of the guys, it's actually a really interesting sort of structure that a lot of them use. They end up buying a pretty material portion of the company on market, get to sort of 4.9%, then use a bank to buy 4.9% of it on swap, and then suddenly you can pretty easily creep to kind of 10% of a company, and then you buy another 10. So
that's what Ramelius did with Spartan, eh? That's what Ramelius.
They did. I mean, that was the other thing. That was a really interesting transaction where they bought that line from Tembo as well. Yeah. And then they had a little bit of swap there too. So no, I wouldn't be surprised if we see something going on, but I just don't think that sort of like rating in the register piece is probably done. And I think, to be frank, having a chat with a number of directors of listed companies, they're a little more focused on making sure that the operations continue rather than using this as an opportunity to buy some stuff out. But I think that's a bit sad. There could be some awesome opportunities around here. Bright Star is a good example. That for a better sort of funded counterparty, that looks fantastic. If you think gold prices stay around, 5,000 to 6,000 Aussie, shit, that thing's going to be making a lot of money for $100 million EV.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I was even just looking at Northern Star then. The volume's not bloody huge, but they're actually one of the better performers on the gold market today. And they were a good performer after one of their previous downgrades as well. They had a bit of a rebound.
Yeah.
So you always wonder if they're performing a bit better than other goldies, who's buying them, and whether Agnico and that are stepping in now. Hey, mate, nothing
Exactly
like
right.
a good theory, brother. Mate, what do you mentioned one you're picking up at low prices. What else are you looking at?
Mate,
While
I'm,
things are hammered?
I'm really liking Ben's at the moment. You know, I think that sort of around where we're sitting at the moment. Obviously, it's really, really, really volatile, Ben's, but at kind of, I mean, where is it? At around $2 a share. Jeez, that thing's
$2.17 at the
cheap.
moment.
Yeah, 2.7. Like that's bloody cheap. I know it's like, you know, it got as low as $1.70 at the start of the week as well. It's rebounded a bit. And that's just an absolute tier one discovery. You know, that looks to me and looks to, you know, I think you've met Brad Watson, our analyst. He loves it. He thinks that's kind of the next Tropicana. I can't disagree. It looks like it could easily be a sort of 200 or 300,000 ounce per annum mine, and the market's sort of factoring that in as well. As much as it pains me to say it, given the you know, some of the people involved as well, but it's an awesome discovery. So that one looks like, you know, and talk about takeover targets. That could easily be a takeover target. Someone comes in and pays $3, $3.50 a share. That's materially undervaluing the deposit. So
wonder what Ramelius are going to do with their 11% stake. I think they got.
Yeah.
They've obviously sort of got their foot on it, but whether because it's so isolated, I wouldn't think they'd be so focused on the Mount Magnet expansion and Rebecca Rowe, like whether they'd exercise that or get rid of it or transfer it to someone else.
Never as well.
Yeah, like I mean, well, never, just the Mount Magnet hub with I can't look. Maybe we've seen them with Spartan sit on the sidelines, wait for Spartan to do all the discovery work, and then, you know, take it at a much higher price. Don't know if they're going to do the same with that or actually swap, just bloody, you know, block trade the stake to someone else that wants it. What do you reckon?
Well, mate, they've been really acquisitive with M&A. That's kind of how they've grown. But I mean, look, you'd be silly to sell this unless it was a, you know, I guess what a good example was how the transaction that Perseus did with Predictive, where they sort of bought that big stake, but they gave the guys the optionality, you know, if they were to come in and buy the rest of it. So I mean, I don't know if Ramelius end up taking the whole thing over. You know, maybe I think they've got enough on their plate as it sort of stands. And I don't think I don't think they need another asset. And that's not what the market's kind of screaming out for them is another growth angle. But you know, you'd be, if you weren't the great man, Zeppi, I think you know, you'd be sort of wanting to put your finger on it a little bit more. And he's definitely got, you know, I guess the free option in inverted commas on that thing too. You know, I reckon he probably does a slightly better job there, but you know, their DNA is not in exploration. You know, their DNA is in M&A and operations as well. Zeppi's a fantastic operator. I think he's done really, really, really well for a long time in some pretty tough assets. And especially, you know, I guess, you know, a lot of his M&A has been really, really smart. And at the time, people have said, you know, shit, as he paid overs for that. A good example was Spartan. I think you know, the time the transaction occurred, I thought, you know, the Spartan guy, you know, he probably felt like he could have got more. You know, Spartan probably felt like they could have got more there, and I think Zeppi got a decent sort of price. But you know, Jesus, he's done relatively well in terms of that acquisition as well, and that's really made that business a more material sort of gold miner as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if they take a bit of a swing here. But I just know, you know, the other major shareholders in Ben's are I think it's probably got a $10 a share handle on it at the moment. So unless it's really,
Of course they do. Every one of their stocks is going to be $10. But it's interesting. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. It worked good for Ramelius there because they picked Spartan up at what, effectively $2 or something. But then, can you imagine if Spartan was still exploring and getting the shit promoted out of it when gold went to 5,400? That would have been a $3 odd stock, and it would have been a $4 bid needed to buy him. So he effectively got him pretty cheap. But then on the other side, you look at all these gold miners that closed out their hedge books at the end of last year when gold was, freaking up into 5,000s, and now it's back to 4,500. So it's tough to get it right. Where in that case, I feel Ramelius did get it right because Spartan would have been worth a lot more, I believe.
Oh man, absolutely. I mean, and you just saw how I know we've this is a bit of a sore point. Sorry to bring it up, is the old talk guys as well. How,
I'm back in. I'm back in. I bought back in where I sold out. So fucking, it's all bloody. I got back in at like 39 and a bit after on the downturn. So it's like, it's all good. Yeah, sore point for many reasons.
Well, mate. Well, I think those guys are going to do. It actually looks really interesting. I know.
Well, the fact they've picked that one is what I'm thinking. They could have gone to anywhere. They've picked that one, and I'm like, there must be a reason why. So I'm trying to keep it simple.
Exactly right. I think that's probably. I mean, the most important thing in mining, to be frank, is just picking the right people. It's picking someone that is going to be able to execute, and if it doesn't work out, I've got another plan around the asset as well. And that was the Genesis model. I remember when I first spoke to Raul when he took that over. He goes, "Well, mate, we wanted to use it as a platform to buy other stuff," and that's what they've done. They through sort of M&A, Dacian and St Barb's and. Obviously now Magnetic as well, which is a cracking deposit. Speaking of stealing things, they've done a really good job there picking that up, I think.
Yeah. Could have got it a bit cheaper.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, mate, in the grand scheme of things, shit, it's that's an awesome deposit. And you probably wouldn't, as you pointed out, if you'd had a crack today, I think the boards would have told you where to walk. Do you know what I mean? Whereas he's paid kind of a pretty reasonable price for that, and I think there's maybe a little bit of management sort of discount there on the MD at the time. He's sort of not the greatest promoter in the world, so they picked up a pretty awesome asset for a pretty good price.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how Genesis goes during this period. If there is a bit of a leg down, because that's a binding scheme. They can't. They can't really get out of it because Magnetic's metrics haven't changed. I think, God, you can't really get out of a scheme if the gold price falls. I think maybe you could, but they're funding that with, it's 70% cash funded with their existing, debt and cash. And then if there's a bit of a gold price downturn, that puts their balance sheet under a little bit of stress, I feel, Genesis. But if gold holds, it'd be fine.
Yeah, you're right. But I think if the market can't, if they need to, the market will be there for them to raise as much money as they need. I think he's effectively got a blank check from Australian instos, and everyone in Oz, really, really likes Raul. He's kind of, I guess, number one golden boy, for I guess, pardon the pun there. And he's always got a massive, premium in terms of, I guess, how he runs a business. And it's absolutely fair as well, because he's just done an amazing job, both at Saracen, and now at Genesis, building these businesses up and really kind of under promising, over delivering as well. That's what he does a great job of, is managing the market's expectations. And as a result, I think he's effectively got a blank check from kind of mid cap and small cap fund managers across the country.
He's not the man anymore. It's Matty Nixon. I think Raul looks now his chair, as long as he's attached to it. Who knows? You could see the transition unfolding. Matty Nixon, probably one of the best mining engineers in the country, I believe. And he's
You had much to do with him, Matt?
Yeah, I went to uni with him, and know him very well. So very, very intelligent, bloody. Resilient bloke, so he's going to do a bloody brilliant job. But it's how long I just am unsure how long Ral's name will be attached to Genesis Forever, how long he'll stay chair. He's got about 200 odd million bucks worth of paper that I think he's very highly invested in. But there's definitely a transition going on there, I believe.
Oh, definitely. But I still think, he kind of, as the chair, he obviously control the strategy of the business. And the fact that his name is still sort of, I guess, not, while he's not doing the day-to-day, he's definitely looking at the strategy. And I think people are really, really focused on that as well. Capricorn was a good example. Clarkey wanted to hand the reins over and then unfortunately, didn't. But I think that's been the best thing for the stock, is to keep him around. I think he'd like to do the same and walk off into sunset with his couple $100 million of Capricorn stock at some point. And I think he's got more than that, doesn't he, Matt? It'd be a pretty material amount. But he's been able to, by staying there, I think he's actually improved his net worth as well.
No, I think maybe that news article of Genesis and Capricorn merging maybe wasn't as fake as people thought. That could have been their way of thinking, right, how do we both get out of this? But then they're like, who's going to run it? And neither of them probably did. Who knows? But that's a theory. It mightn't have been smoke and mirrors, that story. So
exactly right.
Anyway, right, mate, that's me. I love talking stocks. Appreciate it, mate. I've got to talk about them because I can't trade them for another 12, 13 days for good reasons.
Well, mate, the most interesting thing that's happening today is obviously the big game tonight. Your boys versus mine, up the chooks tonight.
Oh, mate, Eagles are fucking shit at the moment. Like, look, it's still there. It's still hanging up, but fuck me dead. Anyway, mate, you have a lovely weekend. Thanks so much. Happy punting today. Market's down a little bit, but we'll flip a coin and wait and see by the end of the week, I guess.
Exactly right, mate. Exactly right. And enjoy the time off the trading.
Will do, mate. I need it. Right, Cobber. Cheers, bruz.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks, Big Nuts. Love your work. Righto. Cheers, punters. Couple of big interviews coming up next week. We've got 2 MDs coming on, one from a big company, one from a small-ish that is trying to get big. It's going to be good. Righto. Cheers.